When Emily and Jason bought the old two-story house just outside town, they were mostly drawn by its charm. Arched doorways, creaky wooden floors, and a huge backyard shaded by overgrown trees. It needed work, but they were eager for a fresh start. 2 weeks into renovations, while tearing out old kitchen cabinets, Jason paused. "Hey, Em, come here." Behind the plaster and wood, partially hidden and painted over, was a small metal door. Rusted hinges, a thick padlock hanging from the latch. Why would there be a locked door inside a kitchen wall? They checked the house plans. No mention of a basement, no mention of any door behind the cabinets. It wasn't even supposed to be there. Jason, ever the curious one, went out and bought bolt cutters the next morning. The lock snapped with a loud clink. They pulled the door open slowly, and a draft of cold air swept into the kitchen. Behind the door, a steep, narrow staircase, concrete walls, dust in the air, and silence. "I don't like this," Emily whispered, but Jason was already halfway down with his flashlight. At the bottom, the air felt still and damp. What they found was not an old root cellar or storage crawl space. It was a room, a fully furnished basement, carpeted, one worn-out couch, a dusty lamp on a wooden table, a row of books on a shelf, even framed photos on the wall. Photos of people, of families, of children. Then Emily gasped. On the far wall was a corkboard with yellowed newspaper clippings, faded notes, a map, red strings connecting pins. Jason walked over, brushing dust from one of the clippings. It was an article from 1997. Local family disappears, house left abandoned, no signs of forced entry. He stared at the photo in the article. The house behind the missing family. It was their house. Jason stepped back from the corkboard, his face pale. "Emily, this is our house." Emily didn't respond right away. Her eyes were fixed on one of the framed photos hanging crookedly on the wall. "Jay, look at this one." It was a grainy photo of a woman standing by the back fence. The photo was black and white, slightly torn, but unmistakably recent. It was Emily, wearing the same jacket she had just tossed on the kitchen counter an hour ago. Jason took the frame off the wall. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered, turning it over. On the back, someone had scribbled in pencil, "She always comes back." Suddenly, the lamp beside the couch flickered, just once, then again, and stayed on. Neither of them had touched the power. Jason shone his flashlight around the room, finding a narrow hallway that extended beyond the far wall, one they hadn't noticed when they first entered. The hallway was pitch black, almost unnaturally dark, like it swallowed light. Emily took a step back toward the stairs. "I don't want to be down here anymore." But Jason was already moving toward the hallway, drawn to a faint sound, a kind of static, or maybe whispering. Emily hissed, "Jason, stop! Listen!" They froze. A soft thud echoed from above. Another. Then the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps crossing the kitchen floor. But they were the only two in the house, weren't they? Jason turned off the flashlight. They stood in darkness, listening. The footsteps stopped, right above them. Part 3. The silence was suffocating. Emily clutched Jason's arm tightly, her nails digging into his skin. Neither of them dared to breathe. They stared up toward the ceiling as if expecting it to crack open at any second. The footsteps didn't return, but they didn't hear the sound of anyone leaving either. Jason whispered, "Maybe it was the house settling." Emily shook her head slowly. "No one walks like that unless they have somewhere to go." They both turned toward the stairs, but a sound made them freeze again. Click. The door at the top of the stairs had just shut. Jason rushed up, taking the steps 2 at a time. He tried the handle. Locked. From the outside. "What the hell?" he muttered, yanking at it. "It wasn't even a real door an hour ago. How is it?" He stopped and slowly looked down. On the inside of the door, scratched into the wood in uneven, shaky lines, was a message. "They always lock it. They don't want you to leave." Emily backed away, her voice trembling. "Who's they, Jason?" He didn't answer. Instead, he turned his flashlight back down the stairs, toward the hallway they hadn't explored yet. "Someone must have done this. This isn't some haunted house thing. It's someone's setup." They walked slowly down the hallway, the walls narrowing with every step. The sound of static grew louder, more defined. It was coming from behind a closed door at the end. Jason reached out and turned the handle. Inside, an old television flickered with black and white static. A VCR sat beneath it, its tray open and empty. On the floor, a collection of unmarked VHS tapes, some cracked, others covered in dust. Emily picked one up, written in marker across the top. July 2nd, attic. Another, March 14th, bedroom, 1 a.m. A third, October 9th, basement, front door. Jason looked around the room, a table, 2 chairs, a recorder, and a file cabinet filled with notes, floor plans, and photographs. Some were of them. Others were of people they'd never seen. Families, couples, a man alone. Every one of them looked scared. Most of the photos were taken inside this house. Jason opened the drawer labeled Ongoing. Inside was a single recent photo. Them, standing in the kitchen, taken from above. The angle? Jason looked up slowly. A tiny black lens blinked once from the ceiling corner, and then the static on the TV stopped. The screen went black. A new image appeared. It was a live feed from the kitchen upstairs, and someone was standing there, watching the basement door. Jason stared at the TV screen, his mind racing. The figure in the kitchen was hard to make out, backlit by the dim window, unmoving. But it was clearly a person, tall, still, facing the basement door. Emily stepped closer to the screen, her voice low. "They know we're down here." Jason opened the file cabinet again, flipping through the folders. Dates, times, routines. Someone had been observing them. Maybe for weeks, maybe longer. "They've been watching this house long before we moved in," he said, flipping to a page labeled Cycle Log. At the top was a handwritten note. "New subjects entered June 3rd. Same pattern, same reaction. They never make it past day 17. Today was June 18th. Jason turned to Emily, his face pale. "It's been 18 days. She backed up, shaking her head. "This is some kind of trap or experiment. But by who? Why?" Before Jason could answer, the screen changed again. A different camera feed. Now it was the hallway behind them. Jason spun around. But the hallway was empty. He turned back to the screen. The live feed still showed the hallway, but this time a figure stepped into frame. Slow, silent, head tilted forward, then another, then a third. Emily whispered, "There's no one here. I just looked. There's no one." The screen flickered, switching to the feed of the basement stairs. The camera zoomed in slowly, frame by frame, and they both saw it. The basement door at the top was now open. The camera held the frame, showing the faintest shadow descending the first step. Jason killed the power to the monitor. "We're getting out, now!" He grabbed Emily's hand and bolted down the hallway, back through the living room and toward the base of the stairs. When they reached it, they looked up. The door was open, just slightly. Jason climbed halfway before stopping cold. There was something lying on the top step. A small silver object, something familiar. Emily reached over him and picked it up. It was her phone, dead and cracked. But on the screen, a notification glowed faintly, despite the battery being long gone. Video recording saved, 13 hours. Jason whispered, "That's impossible. Your phone's been missing since yesterday." But before they could react, something upstairs moved. Fast, a creak, a dragging sound. Jason pulled Emily down. "Back, go back." They ran, but the hallway behind them had changed. The door to the VHS room was gone, replaced by another door, one they hadn't seen before, and from behind it they heard something. Not footsteps, not voices, breathing, slow, rhythmic, close. Jason and Emily stood frozen, staring at the new door. The slow, rhythmic breathing grew louder, closer. Emily swallowed hard. "We have to get out of here." Jason nodded, reaching for the handle. Before he could touch it, the breathing stopped. Dead silence. Then a faint whisper, almost too quiet to hear. "Don't leave." Jason jerked his hand back, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" Emily nodded. "We're not alone in this house." Suddenly, a sharp metallic click echoed from behind them. They spun around. The basement door, the one they had just come through, was now closed. Jason rushed to it and pulled, locked tight. No way out. Panic rising, Emily looked at Jason. "We're trapped." They heard the whisper again, this time clearer. "Stay with us." Jason banged on the door. "Help! Someone, please!" No response. The lights flickered overhead and then went out. Pitch black. Emily fumbled for her phone, but it was dead. They stood in the dark, breathing hard, and then a single word was whispered right next to Emily's ear. Emily froze as the word echoed in her ear, cold and heavy like a stone dropping into a deep well. Jason grabbed her hand, whispering, "We have to stay calm." But calm was impossible. The darkness pressed in on them, thick and suffocating. Their breaths echoed off the concrete walls, the only sound in the black void. Suddenly, a faint light flickered at the far end of the basement. A door slowly creaked open. Slowly, the outline of a narrow corridor appeared beyond it, lit by a weak, flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling. Jason's voice was barely audible. "Maybe it's a way out." Emily hesitated. "Or maybe it's a trap." But there was no other choice. They stepped toward the corridor, the light revealing old peeling wallpaper and scuffed wooden floors. As they moved forward, Jason stopped suddenly. On the wall, scratched deep into the plaster, was a message. "Those who enter don't return." Emily swallowed hard, but Jason didn't look away. Instead, he whispered, "We keep going, together." They moved on. At the corridor's end, two doors faced each other. One door was old and wooden, with strange stains and a small, rusted keyhole. The other was a heavy metal door covered in scratches and dents. Jason looked at Emily. "Which one?" Before she could answer, a slow scraping sound came from behind the metal door. The heavy breathing returned, louder than before. Emily stepped back, heart pounding. "We don't have much time." Jason reached for the wooden door's handle and felt it cold under his fingers. He twisted it slowly. The wooden door creaked open slowly. Jason held the flashlight up. Its weak beam revealed a long, narrow room, lined with shelves. Each shelf held carefully labeled boxes, stacked neatly. Names were written on them. Dates, notes. Emily stepped inside cautiously, reading one of the labels aloud. Subject number 14, Edwin Harper, entry. Date May 12, 1994. Another. Subject number 32, Abigail Collins, entry. Date August 29, 2007. Jason moved to the far end of the room, eyes wide. There were dozens of boxes, some dusty and old, others freshly placed, and then he saw one at the very bottom of a shelf near the corner. Subject number 47, Jason and Emily, entry. Date June 3rd, 2025. Emily's breath caught. That's us. Jason opened the box. Inside, a USB flash drive, a small key, a printed report with timestamps, and 2 photos of them, sleeping. Emily stepped back, hands trembling. They've been watching us since the day we moved in. Jason opened the report. The first page read, Observation Summary, Phase 1, complete. Subject response matches pattern. Recommended for Phase 2, containment test. Suddenly, the light in the room flickered violently. Then, footsteps, fast, heavy, approaching the room. Jason grabbed the key and the flash drive. We have to move, now. Emily pointed to a small service door in the back of the room, almost hidden behind a shelf. Maybe that's where the key goes. The footsteps grew louder. Jason jammed the key into the lock. It clicked. The door opened, revealing a narrow tunnel sloping upward into darkness. Without another word, they ran inside, slamming the door behind them. Darkness swallowed them again. But this time, it wasn't silent. From somewhere deep inside the tunnel, they heard a voice, distorted, electronic, looping the same words. The tunnel was cold, the air damp and metallic. The electronic voice echoed behind them, repeating the same message. Corridor breach in progress. Re-engage lockdown. Jason held the flashlight with a shaking hand, its beam growing weaker. Emily moved beside him, gripping the USB drive tightly. What is this place? She whispered. I don't think this was ever a house. Jason muttered. Not really. They continued up the slope. The tunnel curved slightly, revealing a steel hatch at the end with a keypad. Jason tried the handle. Locked. Emily held up the flash drive. Maybe there's something on this that helps. Jason dug into his backpack, pulled out his laptop, and connected the USB. One folder, labeled Control Room Access, Manual Override. Inside, a floor plan, a text file of override codes, and a video file named Subject 47, Observation Day 4. Emily opened the text file and read aloud, Main exit code 4199. Jason entered the code into the keypad. Beep, 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 beep. Click. The hatch released with a hiss of air. They pushed it open. What they saw wasn't the outside world. It was a massive control chamber, rows of monitors, ceiling-high servers, a wall covered in screens showing other rooms, other subjects, all in different houses, just like theirs. Some were eating dinner, some were asleep, some were screaming. Emily whispered, They're not just watching us, they're watching everyone. Jason moved to the console. The largest screen blinked and changed. Now it showed them, in real time. Standing in the control room, a voice came from a speaker above. Phase 2 confirmed. Subjects have reached observation chamber. Jason looked at Emily. We were supposed to get this far. Emily stepped back. They planned this. The voice continued. Please remain still. Final protocol initiating in 10. Jason yanked cables. 9. Emily smashed a monitor. 8. Jason pulled the main power switch. 7, 6, 5. The countdown stopped. Silence. Then, complete darkness. And from somewhere above them, a distant mechanical sound began to hum. The hum grew louder, deep, vibrating, as if the entire building, or whatever they were inside, was coming alive. Jason grabbed Emily's hand. We can't stay here. They ran past the servers, searching for any exit, any sign of a way out. Then Jason spotted it, a maintenance ladder bolted to the wall, leading to a metal hatch above. Without hesitation, they climbed, rung by rung, every movement echoing through the steel chamber below. The hum became a roar. Something had been triggered. Jason reached the hatch first. He turned the wheel, locked. But this time, no keypad, just a manual release. He shoved it hard, it groaned, then gave way. Blinding sunlight poured in. Jason climbed out, then reached for Emily, pulling her through. They were outside, a forest surrounded them. Dense, untouched. The sky was bright. Birds chirped. It felt normal. Too normal. They looked back. The hatch they just escaped from was built into a concrete structure barely visible beneath the foliage. No signs, no wires, just stone and rust. Jason stepped back and looked around. No road, no people, just silence. Emily held the USB drive tightly. "What do we do now?" Jason's face was grim. "We expose it, all of it." But as they turned to walk deeper into the woods, neither of them noticed the small black camera embedded in the bark of a nearby tree. Its red light blinked once, then turned off.